Thank you very much, everyone online. We can't see you, but we know you're there. We're just talking to the abyss. But yeah, really grateful to be here today. Thanks for inviting us, Ben, Kat, and Steve. Really important day. And Gary's actually on leave today, so for him to come in and present, we're really grateful for that. It shows the commitment. So, Gary, do you want to say hello? Just
so I've been working with Rob a lot on this from the English Language Centre, and we've been looking at over the past couple of years really how we can use different bits of assistive technology to help with our accessibility. So this is very interesting for us.
Yeah, we're really enjoying it, and see how you're working on this, as much as we can. I don't think I've seen a technology that could offer as much assistive support. I don't know about you, Steve, if you've got examples of things in the past, but just the potential of this technology, perhaps something we can talk about as we go on. What we're going to do in this session, it's a sort of half-an-hour session. We'll take questions as we go on the chat if you want. We're going to try and make it a bit hands-on, if that's all right. If you don't have access to the things to take part in this, just watch along and then try it later if you want. What we really like the idea of using GenAI to do is the design stage of any sort of resources you're creating for students. We take a universal design approach for learning, so not making any sort of adaptations to the things we're doing, but actually thinking, how can we make sure that this is accessible from the start and from the beginning of the design stage. That covers all areas in terms of the creation of alternative and multimodal formats of content. So if you have a video, you want the transcript, we've seen already the alt text, transcriptions, everything like that. We think it's all important. All of that should be as part of a full content package. And we're looking at how we can use GenAI to support that process. And then finally, the ultimate aim of the technology is to improve the inclusivity and accessibility with the tool as a support tool, as I've said, assistive tool. So there are considerations when you use GenAI. Obviously, we've touched on the copyright idea, the bias, the unconscious bias that's within it, the data it's built on, the privacy. There's also the idea that the data you put into it. No, that's fine. Yeah. So the considerations we have when we're using this technology, obviously privacy and then data. And when I was thinking of data, I thought, what's a good symbol for that? I thought a floppy disk. Then I realized, oh God, I'm so old. So I updated it to a USB stick, which I realize is still old. This is me. It's now cloud, isn't it? We're in the cloud. So I think, okay, technology's changing. The underlying principles are still there. It's the idea that what we put into this technology, let's be mindful of that. We don't want to put in personal information unless it's within a restricted environment. That involves the content we're creating as well as things we're adapting. Do we own the content? Do we have the legal right to make these changes or to use it? And so in light of that, what we're going to use is Copilot. So that's available to all staff through Microsoft Edge. So if anyone's in the room on a laptop or a phone, if you log into the Edge browser, which you should have installed if it's an MWS machine, you will find Copilot in the top right-hand corner, so just up there. And what that means is you're operating within a protected environment. So ITS love this because it means it's safe, it's secure. No data is shared beyond the browser. Nothing is used to train the models. Anything you put into it won't go anywhere else. So you can do that knowing that everything you're going to do is okay today. That's available to all staff and students. So if people want to start using that, from now, please do so. Also available on the phone. So this is a really good phone app, actually. I don't know if you've got the Microsoft 365 app. Sits on the back, on your phone, iOS or whatever you're using, if it's Android. And within that, as soon as you open up the app, you'll get this home page here, which is the Copilot page. You can access all your documents through OneDrive, but actually what we're looking at today is that Copilot area. So from there, and this is going to come into play when Gary demonstrates something in a minute, you can use things like audio input, text input, and voice and image input. So what we want to do is work through some examples in the next sort of 25 minutes or so. So if you want to log on to that web address, I can read it out. It's tinyurl.com/4ZYAZ4WC. I'm going to put that in the chat for anyone online, just so you don't have to type it out. And if you want to scan the QR code, that should take you to the examples page as well. So I'll leave that up for just a second. Is that working for anyone? Hopefully it goes to the right place. Has that worked? If not, let me send this round. Let me just get this. I'll copy this out. So what that will take you to is this session example page. So if you're in the Teams meeting, you should be able to access that as well. But let me just put that in the chat. Sorry, Ben, I got the transcription up again. There we are. Right, and now I will hand over to Gary, if that's okay.
Great.
Okay, so we've been looking at with generative AI. Obviously, we started in November 22 with ChatGPT, and at the time it was only text. It would only really receive text as input. And then last year it started to also accept certain multimodal types of input, including images. So that's what we're going to look at today. Now, what Rob's just showed us with Edge and Copilot also accepts images. So we can all do this without having to make any accounts or download any additional software. So I'm going to go to Copilot inside of Edge. And we can do this in two ways, actually, just as Rob demonstrated. At the top, we have the icon, and it will open up a panel. Or if we make like a new tab and we just click in the search bar, we have this option here, and then you kind of get a full screen version, so you have a little more like real estate to play with. Now, there is actually 3 models here that we can choose from, and I believe the more creative model is the best one to use. I think this is the only one that uses GPT-4, so we can use that free without having to pay, which is fantastic, and you get slightly better results. So I think these two still use 3.5, so use the more creative model. So we have our usual text box down at the bottom. And what I'd like to try and do today is take a diagram that we might be looking to use in some educational materials and have the model produce a text explanation of the diagram for us. Okay, so I've got an image on my desktop here, which I'm just going to open and copy. It's a good diagram. I think the person who's made it really knows their source material, but maybe not so good at the construction of the diagram. You can see a few things are slightly misaligned, but the diagram's good. It's an entity relationship diagram for a library system. So I'm going to copy that into my prompt in Edge. So I just copy the image and then paste it here, and we can see it's kind of uploaded it into the instruction. And I've actually written a text prompt as well. Let me just take that. It's on the example page on the Chrome tab. On the Chrome tab, okay. Yeah, so at the top of the page here, I think you all have this document. There is a text prompt. So I'm just going to add that as well as the image. So it just says, please explain the diagram so that a visually impaired student can understand it. I intend to save it as a Word file, and then that the student will use it with the immersive reader in Microsoft Word, which we'll look at shortly, to have the document read it aloud to them. Okay, so I'm going to submit button, accept the terms, and it will analyze the image and then try and act on the prompt that I've given it. So let's just wait for it to do that. Yeah, and with all sorts of tasks, you can use this ability to look at the images for anything. If you wanted to produce a batch of alt text for a variety of images, you could also ask it to do that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if you've had luck with it, I think it's just this computer, then yeah, paste it in the chat and we'll have a little look at what it's done, if that's all right, while we're waiting. I'll just see. Anyone online as well? Yeah, let us know if you've had success with this. Let's see. So we've got one here. And have you pasted the image as well, if that's all right, Kat? Yeah, oh, is that the image? Okay, great. Okay, great. So you've done it for us. Thank you. We should get you up here. Just yeah, but as you see, yeah, if you want to talk through that, Gary, that's great.
Okay, so it's done a good job. I can see it's for this type of diagram, it's managed to separate the entities and the attributes. It's given a clear explanation of each of them, and then it's managed to also highlight the relationships between them. So that's exactly what this diagram is demonstrating. Obviously, with anything that we use with generative AI, we have to be able to check the output. We have to make sure that we review anything it gives us and don't just post it blindly. But yeah, it looks like it's done a really good job. The language is clear, as we asked it to be. And we just have to also make sure, if we're going to turn this into a document for a student, that here we go, finally.
that we kind of make sure we edit out any of the text output that relates to it being an AI, you know, because it might certainly, I'll do that for you kind of stuff at the start, and it might also add on something at the end saying like, I hope this will help your student understand such a diagram. So you just got to be very careful to edit like this kind of thing at the end. Now, what this does, once we've got this text, we actually have a download button at the bottom, which is really useful because we can export it to 3 different formats. We can export it to Word, directly to PDF, or to plain text. Okay, so if we export it to a Word document, it will. Okay, great. So it's exported it, and we can see it's formatted it really well. We have all of the text, and actually any kind of any sources or references that it's used to create the output, it lets you know as well. Now, where this is very useful is we can go in Word to the View menu, and then students or staff can use something called the immersive reader. So if we click on this, we have this really, really great environment that can help students in a variety of ways. It will read it to them, so it's like a screen reader, and we can adjust the speed and the gender of the voice as well. So we have a couple of options there, which is really, really nice. We also can adjust the text size, the spacing, the colors, which is very useful, and the number of lines to improve focus. So especially useful for dyslexic people. We can focus on a particular line and read like a line at a time, or even 3 lines at a time to help it focus. In the middle section, which is kind of language connected and parts of speech, if they're looking for help understanding how to say these words, we can break all of the words up into syllables, and we can get a bit of help by highlighting different parts of speech, including nouns, verbs, any adjectives, and adverbs as well. Now, if there's international students who we're working with, we can choose a language, and it will give us, if we click on the word, we can listen to the word in English, listen to the word in the target language. And if there are any languages, any words that have pictorial references, you can see those as well. So it's a very sort of clear environment for students to work in to understand what was originally just a diagram that they might not have been able to process into a text format, which they get a lot of help understanding as well. So it's a very, very simple process. You go to Copilot, generate the text, and then just use your download button to make a Word file. And as soon as you have the Word file, you can move into the immersive reader. And here we are. And then you have all of these tools available to you. Yeah, it's a very, very, very nice way to take something that was originally inaccessible to certain people and turn it into something accessible. Okay.
Yeah, great. Are there any questions on that sort of demonstration? People happy with that? As a first port of call? I think, as Gary says, it's that multimodal, you know, with very little effort. We've gone from a complex diagram there to an accessible Word document in about, well, 2 minutes for you, Kat, and 10 minutes for us, but we got there. That's one example. So yeah, as we said, it can be any image you like. It doesn't have to be something that you've downloaded. It can be something that you've taken a picture of yourself. This is where we mentioned the bias earlier, though. You know, if you're uploading an image to it, be aware that if there's an interpretation of it, so if it is pictorial or it's not text, there will be errors. There may be mistakes, and it's important to always look out for those as you're sort of proofreading it. But quite a nice way there to just generate, extra content, supporting content as you go along. The next example I was going to demonstrate is this idea around inclusive language and improving the inclusivity of language. This could be in a presentation, a script, a newsletter. I was tempted to use the VC's email, but I thought I won't, just in case it ends in bad news. But actually, I did check it, and it was very good. So well done them. But here we are. So I've got an example script here. This is, a very basic sort of presentation script. I've made some intentional errors here writing it with AI. What I'm going to do for this one, I'm going to paste it into my pilot area again. And the prompt for this, again, you'll find it just below that, is analyze this text. And for the inclusivity of language, we're looking out for cultural, gender, ability, stereotypes, perspectives, things like that. I want to make sure that actually I'm using language that's fair to everyone. So I've pasted in my script, and this can be anything you've written, and I'm going to ask it to analyze it. And what it will then do is just go through that content and draw out where I've used terms that perhaps are exclusionary. So, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps not a nice way to start an email. I want to open it more welcoming. So, hello everyone. Cultural sensitivity. I've mentioned countries there, and I've made assumptions about their economies. I'm talking about disabilities. Actually, I want to talk about ability rather than singling anyone out there. And economic diversity, women's roles. It's really just given me a very nice breakdown there of different areas that perhaps I might have overlooked when I first wrote it. So I could ask it to improve that. I asked it in this instance not to. I told it to not make the changes because I wanted to demonstrate them. If I put that prompt in before, it might have actually just automatically made the changes, something that I might want to do anyway. So I'm going to say, okay, improve based on this guidance. And what that will then do is take these changes and update my content. So this could be an email, it could be anything you like. You're doing a lecture. As we've said, you can record your voice into this, so you can use the microphone to just deliver. If you're doing a presentation, you could actually just try and do it earlier by doing it to this and asking it for feedback on it. Another thing that I like to use is the present live feature within PowerPoint Online. So again, all staff have access to this through 365. If you take your PowerPoint and you go to rehearse with coach, which is under the slideshow setting, what I'm going to do, I'm going to allow it to have access to my microphone, and I'm going to start rehearsing. I'm just going to say, hello everyone, how's it going today? Lovely to be here, thank you. Gary thinks there's a 1 minute limit. I'm going to test him on this. Let's find out by stopping it and pressing escape. And luckily I win. So what it will give you after you've done your rehearsal is this, I'm not sure if it's AI, but it's becoming AI. We talk about AI today as a sort of go-to software, when really it's going to integrate into the software and applications we use. And it won't be a case of go to Copilot. It will be Copilot is probably in the Word, the PowerPoint, the things you're using anyway. But what I get within this rehearse section is a really nice sort of summary, if I was doing it properly, of pace and language. But the one I'm looking for now is this inclusivity. If I click that, it gives me a really nice breakdown further down the screen of what I should be looking for in terms of my inclusive language and the type of bias that it's going to review. And that's a good breakdown of things that perhaps I should be looking out for when I'm delivering a presentation, and things that I can look for going forward. So again, that's available. Any PowerPoint you've got, when you're within the office.com environment, just find your PowerPoint online, go to present live, and you'll be able to do that rehearse with coach. Another nice feature there, I know we're sort of veering off from GenAI, but that's because GenAI seems to be coming into everything we do anyway. So the use subtitles function is very nice, because what that can do is give me my language. So I'm going to say UK English, but I can also give a subtitle language in any number of different ones, which students themselves can also pick. So once I start, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to learn Dutch today, and I'm going to present from the beginning, and it should turn on, if I could see the bottom there, but I can't see it. So what you would normally see in this region here at the bottom would be the option to choose the subtitle that you'd like to have for your watching. So actually, you could have a room of students, and each one of them's watching it in a subtitle relevant to them if needed. Is anyone using these features already? Anyone online? I don't know if you've got the chat, but any questions, Ben, so far?
Nothing so far. People have put their outputs from the previous exercises.
Good.
I
And
can look on Teams as a language and speech option, and then turn on live captions and turn on speaker coach. If I do that now, that's what you've got on there with the subtitles that kind of control what.
yeah. So as we say, these are integrating within. So actually, if I was sharing my screen and I wanted to share my PowerPoint rather than share the screen, it would have that option built into this. So when you go to share here, you can select share, and it will give you, instead of just screen, if you go further down, it will say share your PowerPoint. Now, because my PowerPoint is within that area, the office.com, and they're linked, I could just pick that and it would just load that. So actually, I could then work from my screen as well people would be able to see the different things there. Again, we're talking about the integration of generative AI, sorry. So another thing that's really nice is this idea of, okay, well, we've got the core content if we're delivering a lecture or a seminar, but I want to add more to it. Or I found a really nice article. And what it might be useful is getting your students to actually be using these tools themselves in their own study. So here I've got an example of it's AI, sorry, AI in healthcare. This is just an example. So if you're online now, go back to Edge and go back to Copilot, or sorry, go back to any page in the Edge browser, paste in the link to almost anything. So this is an article on AI in healthcare, but try it on something in your own context. And then when you're on the page itself, so here I am, I've got a nice article on the history of AI in medicine. Go back to that button on the top right, which is the Copilot option. And then the prompt we're going to use for this one, which I've saved here, is create a glossary of terms from this article and format in a table. So I've got the article, I've told students to look at it, but what I want them to do is understand more about it. You know, if they've read through it and they're still not sure of some of the terms used, I'm just going to paste that in there. And what this does is Copilot will be aware of what is on this page. So because it's a sidebar, it's almost just like I don't know how to describe, how would you describe that, Gary? Just a sidekick. Yeah, it's there. It's an assistive technology. So as you'll see, it's gone through this article. I haven't actually read the article yet, you know, hypothetically, but it's going through the article and it's pulling out key terms and it's giving me a nice table. So what I can do, if I've set this as reading within Canvas, I've asked students to go away and look at this article. I can also provide this table of terms and references. And again, we've got that option below of export. So we're very quickly generating content around existing content. The copyright issue here isn't one to worry about because actually the terms it's pulled out aren't terms that are protected by copyright. They're conceptual terms. So it's things that will help the student learn. And it's things that are, you know, it's not been written by someone. Actually, these are terms that are just, that's what that is. It won't breach any copyright doing that. If you tried it on something that was purely creative writing, it would be interesting. And it's probably a grey area. Steve, I can see, is that a hand? Really good question. I don't know if everyone can. Is this room mic'd all around?
Unfortunately, I don't know how well.
Okay, so Steve asked, does this sort of stifle creativity and, you know, the opportunity to be creative? Really good question. I would say it doesn't if it's used correctly, if it's used intelligently in the way that actually this just gives you the base level of the concepts definitions. You know, that if they can get an understanding of what these concepts are, you could then set them a task that brings in that creative process. So for example, we've got things here, just what's computer vision? Well, if they've got an understanding of computer vision, you could ask them to provide an example of it and, you know, in their context as they understand it, bring that together for that peer-to-peer learning. In this instance, I'm just demonstrating this as a multimodal. So it's I think that would be a bigger picture around the pedagogy of what you're going to teach with it. This for me would just be, okay, some students wouldn't engage with this in a way that others might, whereas some students would prefer to just have a table of, you know, content. Just to demonstrate one more thing, because I'm aware of time. No, it's fine. It's one more thing that's related to this discussion, which if you're online, you can't hear that. It's around the sort of multimodal. Is it shortcuts to learning? It's different preferences of learning. It's how we engage with content. Generative AI causes a lot of discussion, which is fantastic, because actually it makes us consider how are students learning? How do we want to learn? You know, how do staff want to learn? How do we want to teach? So the final thing that I can just show you quickly, which is similar to this, is it's creating a quiz. So again, we're using the same sort of content from the article, but this time we're going to get a quiz out of it. So you might prefer just to scroll through and look up a key term. It might be a flashcard style way of learning. Someone may prefer to be tested, you know, formatively tested on it. So with this Copilot, you can ask it to create you a quick quiz. You can tell it not to reveal the questions until you've answered, things like that. I've asked for a quiz as if I'm designing it for students. So I've asked for feedback and the correct answers. All of that based on the content that I've just, you know, read through once. So actually, it's just a time saver, really, for staff. For students, it's a time saver in the way that they can engage with things. So I know we've run out of time. And as we say, a more complex model that we talk about is ChatGPT. So this is the model that CI are using on the premium account. We've developed, and Ben's working with some teams around developing an inclusion and disability support model.
Yeah, custom GPT.
Yeah. So the one we've designed is a custom curriculum aligner. So what we want is to improve the inclusivity of entire programs and modules. This is a paid model. So actually, we don't have university access to it yet. But we do have the ability to work with departments and individuals that would like to try it and see how it can improve their output. So what I would do here is I've got my module overview, which I've generously been given an example of by a colleague in psychology, and I'm going to say improve the inclusivity of this module. And this is just to demonstrate the sort of more advanced advanced program. So what that will do, because it's a custom GPT, we've built it around the curriculum framework, Strategy 2031, the access plan, access and participation plan, and it will take all of that into its knowledge, and it will look at this module. And the module itself, I can show you in the background, is a sort of basic overview of what the module is in terms of timeline and content. So as you see, it's just a module aim, learning outcomes, staff development. It will take that and it will basically break it down into different areas that we can improve the accessibility and inclusivity of it in terms of belonging, content, teaching, learning delivery, accessibility and support. So if you are interested in ChatGPT, generative AI, and developing more holistic programs, we'd like to try and work with you. We'll evaluate it as we go. It's not the be all and end all. We've seen a lot of issues with it, which we try and overcome. Steve made some great points about actually what does it mean for the university. That's an ongoing discussion. There's working groups that sort of talk about this every other month. And yeah, it's a technology that is, I mean, Gary and I are enjoying it at the minute, aren't we? Because it's makes our day job fun. But yeah, otherwise, I would recommend going, if ever you want the up-to-date information, at the CIE website, we have the latest guidelines, which are just being rewritten weekly almost. These go back and forth. But what they do give you is a breakdown of what is considered at the minute as acceptable and unacceptable uses. Grammarly is interesting because it is used, it's allowed under the assistive plans as far as I'm aware, yes. But I don't know if the version that would generate, content would be accepted under the non-assistive programs, which is where we've got a bit of a divide, and that's something we're trying to address in everything. But yeah, I was just going to show Bryony because she's asked the question about the diagram still. So Gemini is another one that we could try, but I haven't logged in, so I don't know if that would work. So again, if you go to the CIE web pages, we've got this option here of alternatives to ChatGPT Plus. For me, I'm still ChatGPT Plus. ChatGPT 4 is the best. I think you agree, Gary, don't you?
It is, yeah. Claude 3.
Overall, yeah. So there's Claude, which you can access as well. There's a free version of that. There's all these different models that are running and developing at the same sort of time. GPT-5 are in discussion about releasing another model soon. They just tend to drop things without warning you. So one day we're writing the guidance and the next day it doesn't matter because it's out of date before we published it. So that's why when I refer to these guidance, this is your go-to for sort of acceptable uses. The COPA supersedes everything. AQSD's guidance is the be all and end all because that is what is within the code of practice and assessment. So that's where we go for our guidance. So yeah, it's a complex area, but one that's very interesting for us anyway as educators and basically working with staff to try and get access to this and students to access it themselves. So thank you for your attention. Sorry for going over by 10 minutes. Any more questions or should we have an early lunch?